Good morning, and welcome to our Board of Supervisors meeting on November 5th, 2019. We'll start the meeting off by doing the Pledge of Allegiance with, led by Supervisor Anthony Botello.
Ready, salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Supervisor Botello, since you led the Pledge of Allegiance, you want to let everybody know what's going on this Monday?
Sure. This Monday is a very important day for our nation in remembrance of our veterans and their sacrifices that they made in securing our freedoms. And I hope that we all go out and honor our veterans on next Monday, and maybe even give one or two of them a big old hug for their sacrifices, and make sure that we all appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Acknowledgement certificate of posting.
So moved.
Second, Mr. Chairman.
All in favor?
Aye.
5-0. Presentations and recognitions. Seeing that there is none, we'll go to public comment. Public comment is the opportunity to address the board on items of interest not appearing on the agenda. No action may be taken unless provided by Government Code Section 5495 4.2. Ma'am, any speaker cards?
Mr. Chairman, Supervisors, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Sir.
I'm here for my normal thing in regards to the roads on 1860 Salinas Road. I would like to see something done on those. We've given a piece part approach to it up to this point. Ray assured me that at one time that I was on a list, and I have just talked to this gentleman. I would like to see something done. It's coming time winter, and that road is a mess. The guardrails all need painting, repair. The road is just a total mess, and if anybody drives it, you know it's a mess. So if you would reconsider, and I hope this gentleman's got something for me, and we can work it out. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Ma'am? Seeing that there is no other speakers, we'll go to department head announcements. This is for informational only. CAO Ray Espinosa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I'd like to invite up Chris Magnato, interim OES manager. She likes to give the board and the public an update concerning power.
Good morning. Just to update you on the PSPS power outage we had last week. There were about 1,300 residents of San Benito County affected. They were in the very rural areas of the county. We did have a community resource center opened by PG&E that was in the Mission San Juan Bautista parking lot. And over the 3 days that they were opened, they saw 15 people that passed through. They weren't even there to charge or for water. They just passed through, mainly after church on Sunday. So it went well, considering power was back on when they promised, and we don't foresee any more of those events happening anytime soon. Any questions?
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to thank Chris for her hard work. She worked all weekend on this constantly and responding to my frantic emails, so I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Very welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Chris. Appreciate that. Harry, I'd like to invite you up, Harry, if you don't mind, to kind of just give a quick update with the roads, if you don't mind. Harry Mavrogenis, our RMA director.
Yeah, just a quick update. We have completed the two pothole contracts that we had recently with PCS and with Granite. Panoche Road now is completed. The other work that Granite did, which seems satisfactory, is done now. Again, potholes are emergency work, and they're not going to be the smoothest surface. but they are primarily to prevent accidents and damage to vehicles. We have a small crew. We're constantly working additional pothole repairs. On top of that, recently you approved moving ahead with $11 million worth of projects between the Measure G and the Enterprise Fund, and we are now in design on those. We've done the core sampling. The initial engineering work is underway, and we would like to start in the early spring, as soon as the weather permits, to do the major repavings on roads like Fairview, Shore, South Side, Buena Vista, a number of others, San Benito Street. So that package is moving along. We will bring a supplemental contract to you for the engineering, because we added some roads above beyond the initial $4 million worth of roads that we had. So we're moving ahead as quickly as we can on those, and I look forward to next spring making some major improvements to our road system.
Thank you.
And
Great.
we're also working, we're doing the slurry seal in a number of the CSAs and the chip seal work. A lot of that was done last Friday. They're doing slurry seal, I think, in Ridgemark this week, and all the work seems to be doing well. Union Heights is also being done, and we've had no complaints so far.
Thank you, Harry. Appreciate that. I'd like to invite up our Ag Commissioner, Karen Overstreet. She has a cannabis update.
Good morning. I just wanted to give you an update of the status of the cannabis business permit applications. We are now moving 6 of the applications into our phase 3, which is the interview process, an opportunity for us to actually meet the applicants and learn more about their project. This is scheduled for November 20th, and then pending on who gets approved beyond that point would be the public meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to invite up our librarian, Nora Conte.
Good morning, board members, members of the public,
Last
and
night, too. Thanks.
the public that is viewing us at home. It is November, and our annual report, I placed an annual report in each one of your boxes, but just in case, because I know all of you are busy, then I brought an extra one for you to take a look at. First thing I want to say is I want to thank our CAO for his recommendations on the budget. I want to thank each board member for their also approval of the budget, because it has had significant impact on the library. The library is thriving. If you take a look at how many visits we had over 114,000 visits that are reflected on the gate. The visits to our website have been over 119,000. This one that I'm just so pleased with, and again, thank you, board, thank you to our CAO. We have over 208,000 items that were checked out. As you know, there was an increase in the book budget. So individuals are being able to come in, check materials out. We're able to, some of those books that even had typos in them that we got from donations, we've cleared those out and have replaced them. So folks are enjoying how now the collection is reflecting more breadth, more depth, a more popular collection. So we're very, very, very pleased with that. We continue to provide research instruction, as you can see, to our community as well. So I wanted to be able to present this to you, and with a lot of gratitude for your support, and your library is thriving in a community that wants and desires library services. Thank you so much, board members and CEO Espinoza.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nora. I'd like to invite up Melinda Casillas, our tax collector treasurer, as well as Joe Paul Gonzalez, our auditor controller.
Good morning. So as many of you are aware, we have issued corrected tax bills, property tax bills. Most of them, some of them were mailed on Friday and most of them were mailed yesterday. They clearly are stated on the envelope and also in the tax bill itself that this is a corrected bill. And we also have an insert that kind of explains why we had to issue corrected bills. Basically, there were 2 voter-approved bonds that did not make it onto the original property taxes, and so after weighing, analyzing a lot of options and impacts, we decided to, jointly, we decided to go ahead and issue the corrected bills. So the best that we can determine is that the information that the auditor provided to our vendor's property tax software did not get calculated properly by the vendor, and so they ultimately did not make it onto the tax bills. We've received, in our office, we've received a lot of payments that we cannot process, and so we'll be waiting for taxpayers to send in the difference. We have logged them and tracked them. We have a good system of doing that, and then once we receive the difference, we'll take the original payment along with the difference payment, and then we will process those checks. So those checks have not been deposited, as we cannot give credit to on a partial payment. Do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yes.
Good morning, Board, Chair, Board of Supervisors. When, in October, mid-October, when the, actually it was early October when the auditor's roll occurred, those bond payments were in the roll. We verified that, and so, you know, we're good to go. And part of the, you know, you start with the assessor, they do their role. We add on the special assessments in the auditor's role, and then the tax collector grabs, you know, what we calculated and prints the bills. And so the day after the bills are printed, it's discovered that, you know, these two, you know, the new Gavilan College Measure X bond and the high school bond was not on the bill. So, you know, we, you know, immediately went to Melinda. I said, hey, look, this error occurred. I don't know how it occurred. We contacted Megabyte, which is our vendor, our property tax system vendor, and they said, hey, you know, we'll help you fix this problem. Not an issue. We'll help you all the way. They said no charge. Normally, if we ask for anything, there's a minimum charge for, you know, for any sort of customized work. And so this work is, you know, they're going to complete, you know, complete it for us. So I went to Melinda. I said, hey, look, well, there's 2 ways we could fix this. One is we could let it go, and then in the following year we'll collect double the amount to make the bond payments. But that presents another problem, a cash flow issue. We'll need the funds internally to be able to make the bond payments, because those bond payments have to go out. And that's about $3 million. Now, given that it was so early in the process, I consulted with some of my counterparts and with Megabyte and with Melinda. Melinda did not really want to go this way because she knew it was a big mess for her, and I know I was putting a big a big burden on her and her office, and but I really appreciate the fact that she did this because you know, mistakes happen, And we need to, as soon as we find those mistakes, we recognize them and we fix them the best we can. That's all we can do. And this is one of those situations where Melinda, was gracious enough to help us, ensure that the bond payments get made and the taxpayers pay what they're supposed to pay. These were voter-approved bonds, and, these bond payments are gonna be made. So, that's, any questions there?
Yeah, what can we do in the future to prevent this from occurring again?
Well, for one thing's for sure, before we, once the roll is done, we're going to verify with Megabyte to ensure that the tax collector is picking up the entire everything. I know that she's going to work closely with our office to ensure that all that's correct. This was something that we had in our office verified many times, because these were items that were put into our system back in August. There was plenty of reports to show that they were in our system.
But I guess the question at hand is, yes, it's verified, validated months ago. The first time you print something, are you going to put a process in there to make sure that you look at that copy to ensure that all bonds are on that tax roll?
Yes, so I want to say that each of our offices, the assessor, the tax collector, and the auditor, we each review the draft of the bills. And so we each look at what our different parts were on there. And so in the future, we've assigned additional responsibilities to each of the departments.
So that will become like a standing operating procedure, similar
Yeah.
to, okay, perfect. Thank you very much. Amy?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Melinda, are you gonna be able to give like extensions or more, extra days for people to turn in their taxes? I know you have till, what is it, December 1st before a penalty is
Right.
applied?
So in the process of logging all this information and tracking the payments that we have received, we process as many payments as we possibly could. We were up to date at the point where the property tax system overwrote the original bills. And so those people should be receiving, depending upon if they just made a first installment payment, then the difference will be added to the second installment. If they paid both of the installments and we were able to process those, they will just receive a bill for the difference. For all the people that have paid their taxes in the mail,
Yeah.
that have paid their property taxes between, like in the last 10 days probably, we have tracked all those payments. We can't process them, nor are we going to deposit them until we can process them. And so we have a whole process where we have kept track of all their payments. So we need the difference. We've also been contacting a lot of people saying, that we need the difference between the original bill and the corrected bill. A lot of people think that they were due November 1st and they hurried to get the payments in. They really have until December 10th. So there's not any type of penalty consequence with making those payments up until December 10th. But because we are tracking the ones that, made the attempt to make their payments on time, November 1st or up to December 10th, we will not be assessing penalties on any of those people.
Yeah, because I do know that some of them pay their tax bill like on the 5th or 6th, and they either go to Mexico and they'll come back in a month or two and they'll see that bill, So,
Right, so it's my opinion that people that made the attempt to pay should not be penalized for what was, a corrected issue on our end.
Thank you, Melinda.
It'll be the people that don't make any attempt
Okay,
that.
thank you, I really do
will happen.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Thank you, Melinda, and thank you, Joe Paul.
I want you to know that we apologize for the confusion and the inconvenience to everybody. And we've had a lot of people that came in and paid the difference. And so we'd like to say thank you for your patience and understanding in this situation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Melinda. Thank you, Joe Paul. I'd like to go ahead and keep Joe Paul up there. He has an update out of the auditor's office, Cal PERS event.
Okay, on a more positive note, actually, CAO Espinoza and myself and my assistant auditor, actually, we participated in the Cal PERS conference because it was, so close in proximity in Oakland. We thought, well, this is a good opportunity to, get a little bit sharper on the Cal PERS, all the Cal PERS laws and regulations, which are many. Just want to announce that Cal PERS just created, in fact, it was just released this month, a pension outlook estimator for use by all the agencies. And what it does is it's the agencies can put in, for example, their COLAs that they plan to pay out, and be able to see firsthand how that COLA will affect the pension. How will it affect what our payments are going to be, and what the unfunded liability is. This is important because that's pretty much one of the only things you could really control with regard to pensions is the pay rate. And that's, these are, and for example, this pension outlook estimator, you can put in an additional discretionary payment amount, and you could see how that will change your payments, the annual payments for, and the unfunded liability, as well as the funded status of the plan. Currently, under the current assumptions, it will be in the year 2048 that this pension plan will be fully funded. So really 30 years from now, under the current assumptions. Once the discount rate, goes down, that of course is going to change. If there is for example, a change in law which will pull away the court, the court across the street, all those employees out of our plan, and we're able to do things to manage our plan better, like for example, putting in additional payments. We will, we'll have those opportunities. We could see what it will do to increase our funded status. Recall that we really want to be at very minimum 80% funded status, because that's considered a fair, pretty much that the plan is viable and healthy. Currently, we're at 70.5% funded status. That was it with regard to CalPERS.
Mr. Chair? We're at 70.5.
70.5.
What is the average for everyone else?
That was just about that.
It's pretty much it's that average is there are some plans that are higher, but CalPERS says, basically everyone is at 70.5% funded.
Okay. Peter, did you have a question?
My chair was the same. I mean, my question was the same, Mr. Chair.
Oh, was that?
Mr. Chair, what was our number 5 years ago?
We were at a higher funded status.
Higher.
Yeah. because the discount rate was higher.
That's right.
Okay, the other piece of good news is coming from the elections office. We are diligently working on signature checking the referendum that was presented last month to the clerk of the board, and we're, you know, it's going smoothly. We think it's very possible that, no promises, but we think that we might be done by the end of the week. And so that if that happens, then we can put the item on the agenda for the next meeting for the board to consider what the board wants to do with regard to that referendum. Any questions there?
Thank you, Joe Paul.
All right.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
I want to add one more thing, Mr. Chair, with regards to the CalPERS. The CalPERS definitely is looking at a lot of different things, and it was very enlightening to go to their health program. They are really looking at delivering more affordability for healthcare due to the rising cost. One of the examples there is the 2020 preferred PPO programs or premiums for Region 1, which we would be a part of if we were enrolled with CalPERS, is single 520, two-party 1040, and a family 1350. So those are things that we're obviously going to look at, and something that we've worked with the insurance committee, and we'll be discussing that with the committee out of our HR office in the future. So I just want to let the board know. Also, I'd like to go ahead, Mr. Chair, and pull item number 13 off the agenda, please. We've actually 13.
Okay.
That'll be removed from the agenda.
Okay.
And I believe that's all the announcements we have, Mr. Chair.
We'll go with our board announcements. We'll start with the Supervisor Botello.
Okay, thanks. I had a question on the PERS item real quick, and it was a concern with a number of counties as that discount rate goes lower, our ARC increases quite a bit. Did they update you folks as far as the impact on the counties as far with the year-to-year costs, if that's continue to be a concern?
By Joe
'Cause there
Paul.
were some real concerns.
Yeah, there are concerns, and yes, definitely lowering the rate is definitely a concern for all. So, but Joe Paul can.
Yeah,
highlight
this
it.
was a large topic of conversation at the conference. They know that the employers are going to be, very concerned with this change in the rate, and it's dropped down to 7%. And this is not new. It was previously announced. I know that Stewart is working to integrate those changes into the budget. So
So we're well positioned to absorb that change for this county?
well, I know that the item is definitely on the radar for in the budget.
Mr. Chair, if I may, we can definitely bring this back for more detailed analysis and conversation, but it's definitely on our radar. One of the reasons why both Joe Paul and I went was we wanted to look at the forecasting and kind of what CalPERS vision is, and that's very important for us in the budgeting cycle. So we're going to have further conversations about that.
Yeah, I would recommend through the chair that we do get some information and details a little bit earlier and on a agenda item, so we could be ahead of the game for next year's budget. It's something we have to pay attention to. Thank you. Going back to board announcements, Supervisor GILLIO, myself, administrative staff, COG staff, met with Senator Caballero last week, in relations to the roundabout at 25 and 156 with the RMA director kind of leading the presentation, and did a good job with, describing some of the issues that the city of Hollister and the county has with the roundabout, and hopefully more will follow with additional dialogue with Caltrans and the county and COG, and maybe even with state officials. I'm sure Supervisor GILLIO will elaborate a little bit further. I'm as concerned about the Salinas grade as the public speaker is. Had a conversation with our management team here at the administration office as far as trying to deal, we're working on the road, and I think potholes is to be dealt with as, they become a greater problem. Our staff, the road crew, is doing an excellent job trying to cover the entire county with limited resources, and we continue to allocate more funding to do the best we can to deal with these issues. And I really appreciate the work of the RMA and the road crew themselves being out there and doing, and I see them working and trying. We also need to deal with those guardrails. It is pretty disgraceful as far as the condition that they're in, and also the illegal dumping on that road. And I'm going to try to work with our staff to figure out a way to clean that mess up there. And it's really too bad. It takes some time. It's not as easy as getting a group of volunteers and pulling the garbage up off the road. It's steep. There's poison oak. It's dangerous, and a goal of mine for last year and in a couple of months is to try to address that problem in some fashion. And lastly, as I reported to the public and the board at the last meeting, I had a notice from the FPPC filed by Gina Paolani, resident of Monterey County, on a complaint that I had a conflict of interest. I responded to that, and the FPPC determined that it's not worth investigating, and so that is closed, and I'm not surprised by that. So that's my report. Thank you.
Supervisor Hernandez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the 24th, I met with Tina from Hollister Rec. I'll try to be quick and to the point, actually. Trying to get better with my bullet points. We met with Tina from Hollister Rec to address concerns about the implementation of subleases and protecting the county's interest. So on the 24th, also that same day, I met with Dulce and EDC, and we went over basically a focus on trying to see what it would take to bring Small Business Development Center to San Benito County. I know there's a little bit of a presence here, but it's not really as robust as I feel it could be, and I think it's a focus we should have. So thankfully, SBDC and which is Small Business Development Center, and EDC, Economic Development Corporation, are willing to help. I was a little sensitive to this, but I received an email where it was a letter written from the San Jose mayor proposing that communities do a co-op of the PG&E public grid. I know that's a sensitive topic right now. I think that's a dangerous statement to try to assume that a county, a government entity, can take control of a whole electrical grid, which requires billions of dollars and has heavy legislation already over it. My statement in general is just, I think this is something that would bankrupt our community, and I just wanted to make the Board of Supervisors privy to that letter that's being circulated, this thought process that somehow we can assume to take control of the grid and think we could be successful at it. I think it's a failed proposition. I think it's a dangerous proposition because in his statement, and it's funny because Assemblyman Rivas even agreed that it would be a failed proposition. The way to do it would be to get the public into debt, and that in and of itself is already why I think it would assume a whole lot of risk for our community. So On another note, I actually had a meeting this morning, that's why I was a little bit late, with Dulce and Laura from Clifford Moss, the one that's doing the feasibility study for the library. And it was a really good conversation. Basically, the focus is for us to make sure that there's really clear objectives as far as the public understanding of what this is going to entail. Part of the proposition, obviously, is a bond, which I personally couldn't support. I think the public has had enough bond debt, but just the same, it's the whole goal is for a transparent conversation. We want to make sure that we are included in the questions themselves, so that way that it protects also the county's interest, or at least the Board of Supervisors. I recommend personally that we have a separate statement or assessment that we do ourselves. But on a positive note, really, I was at the Treat Streets event, October 31st and Halloween. I thought it was a great success. Supervisor De La Cruz, Medina, and Gillio were in attendance. It was a great event. They had costume contests with great prizes. There was even a flash mob. Businesses were handing out candy. It was such a fun event, and I just wanted to thank Tina Garza and Jennifer Rodriguez from Hollister Rec that put it together. Our actually, Supervisor Gillio and Medina were both judges there. It was an amazing event, so I'm pretty sure they'll touch on it too. So thank you for another great Treat Streets event for our community. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Supervisor De La Cruz?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I'd like to give you thanks for allowing me to attend a walkthrough through a business called Emergency Vehicles Specialist. In fact, Senator Ana Caviero was in attendance, and Christine Wyatt and other members of the Business Council organized it, and I got invited through the chair, and I was impressed because it's a small business that actually does real well, and it does an important function in our community, and that is it provides the equipment and upgrades for safety vehicles such as fire department and sheriff and the police. And I was impressed that they actually had customers that actually were different parts of our community. And I was really impressed, and the number of employees and how they've grown from a single mom and pop type of business. And her name is Donna Haynes, and her husband started the business, and now they have about 22 employees. And I was like, wow, this is the kind of business that we need in our community. A business that can generate revenue and jobs for our generation. I also attended the second annual Halloween downtown, and Supervisor Gillio, Mr. Medina, and Peter Hernandez were there, and I'm telling you, that's a hit for the kids. We took our grandkids, and by 6 o'clock, they were ready to go to sleep, thank God, because I had to watch the 49er game, but they provide a real community service, and I'm very grateful for them, to the City Hollister, and Tina and Ms. Rodriguez, her name? Janet, thank you. And the other one too, I attended the Red Ribbon this morning and on Saturday. And again, thank you, Supervisor, our chairman, for informing me of this. This is a kind of a participation and relationship that we have as a board, is we all call each other without violating the Brown Act and say, hey, there's a meeting here, can you attend, can you do that? And that's good coordination, and it's a good indication that this board is working together and is beginning to grow together. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman, at the risk
you
of
had your
being
time.
rude,
You had your time.
I was there, and nobody recognized me. I was in costume.
And you haven't taken it off yet. Supervisor Gillio.
Yes, sir. Without being repetitive, I won't cover everything we already covered. It's been a really busy couple of weeks around the county, and also for me. I was up in Sacramento for LAFCO, one of the presentations that I found most valued, that if we ever need to use it. And I was in the presentation with one of our county attorneys. Michael was there, sitting next to me the whole time, talking to me, informing me of all the legal issues. I appreciate that. Thank you. But it was about dealing with troubled districts and districts, special districts that are having problems, or maybe districts that are inactive and they're just languishing. And there's ways that LAFCO can deal with these different districts. And this one was a specific presentation on a troubled water district called Sativa in Los Angeles County. And it was a very interesting presentation on what LAFCO can do in the county, and all the special districts and working together to resolve those issues. So I was grateful to have that learning experience firsthand from people that have dealt with that. Small steps for San Benito County was over the weekend, and the turnout was amazing. What a great event for folks who were out there. Chairman Medina was out there in the morning. He was one of the shoppers with the children. It was interesting because Chairman Medina didn't bring his ID, but he registered ahead of time. But and he said, "Hey, I can't be a shopper." I said, "Hey, you know what, Mr. Chair? I think somebody will probably know that you're the chair here. Or maybe we could bring it up on the website and show them your picture or something. Maybe we could figure it out." So he was able to get in and be a shopper. And all these different events that folks have, I think that was a 22nd year, maybe 23rd year. It's just really heartwarming that we have folks in our community that maybe have something to give, that want to give. And there are so many events that if we perhaps get off of social media, get out there in the real world, there's a lot of people that want to give back and are doing great things. Another event that day was Hollister Environmental Day. Again, 6 events a year between San Juan and Hollister, free shredding, free compost, free electronic waste recycling, and that's all part of the service that you pay for with your trash service. So you can find those dates through Recology. We had the Red Ribbon event mentioned already, San Benito County Behavioral Health. Thank you for putting that on. I think that will grow with time and advertising. I think that'll be a great event. Farm Bureau dinner was also Saturday night. Kay Felice, a local, very humble leader, was honored, and it was very heartwarming to see 4 board members there to support the Farm Bureau and the honoree, Kay Felice. She donates a lot of time and effort in our community and is a real powerhouse. So that was really, really heartwarming to see as well. We had the flu clinic, went off really well. Thank you guys for doing that. I went in there and got my flu shot. Yeah, I think they gave me a little extra shot of pain or something because I was sore for a couple of days after that. But yeah, it was weird. It was kind of the first time that had happened, but it was great. The turnout seemed to be really amazing for that. Well, I wanted to give a quick thank you, really all of our team members, but in particular the road department. I have a lot of miles of road in District 4. We have a lot of miles of road in our district, and 183 miles is a lot. And we get a lot of complaints, and I send them over to Director Mavrogenes and Jason at the road department, and I think they probably get overwhelmed with all the requests that we get, but I just wanted to say thank you. I know you're doing your best to address all these issues, and together we'll get you the resources that you need to get these problems dealt with, and I thank you for dealing with those, and thank you for your time, Mr. Chair.
No problem. We'll move on to consent agenda. Is there any items that the board members wish to pull? Any from the public?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
5-0. That moves us to our regular agenda, which one item. Number
Yes.
12, County Counsel,
I was
discuss and provide direction to staff regarding scope of conflict of interest, advice to be provided by the County Counsel's office.
And I was bringing this to the board for direction. So the history of conflict of interest advice, it mainly arises in the context here of whether an elected or appointed official can vote on a specific matter. Historically, our office has not provided legal issues on conflict of interest legal advice on conflict of interest issues, except to help prepare letters for advice from the FPPC. This was a decision that was made by a former county council and not a formal policy decision by the board. At the time, I've seen a change in different counties over time, where historically less counties were inclined to give this advice, but more counties do provide this advice now as a decision that they've made. The advice comes with certain caveats, though, if it is provided by our office. First of all, it's not a legal defense to an action by the FPPC, and it doesn't create an attorney-client relationship between our office and the board member or an appointed official that's receiving the advice.
Say that again?
It doesn't create a legal attorney-client relationship between
there's
our
no-
office
there's
and
no, you can
there's no
say-
privilege, there's no confidentiality. So for example, if a board member comes to me and says something, I could share that with the other board members, and I could even be compelled to provide that testimony if there was enforcement action. So that's important to realize, because you get more protection with an individual attorney. Let's see, so there's pros and cons, of course, to providing the legal advice. On one hand, individuals that are elected to office, they have these advice questions that come up, and sometimes the advice can be pretty straightforward, that they don't want to have to consult with an attorney to determine that. They want some guidance. And that's counterbalanced by whether or not it's a role that the county as a whole would like our office involved in, whether it's something that the board would like our office to spend the time and energy on as one of the legal assignments in our office. If the board does decide that it wishes to provide legal advice, does it want it to be limited per issue? For example, a simple advice question could take, less than an hour. It maybe take 2 or 3 hours. Do we want to limit the advice on specific issues so that that our office is providing advice on, issues that can be resolved with less than 5 hours, or do we accept advice on, all issues? Of course, it also comes with the caveat that sometimes if there seems to be some sort of conflict with the county, or something that we don't believe that should be appropriately handled through our office, then we would like to have the ability to decline advice and refer to outside counsel if that's necessary. But I would like the board's direction on that. I think that it's pretty evenly split now in the different county council's offices about whether this type of advice is given. I think it's certainly something that can be provided if the board would like to have that, and I'm just seeking direction from the board.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, thank you. So I brought this up at, we did an evaluation of where we want, what kind of services we wanted from our county attorney and the beginning of the year when I first got here. And this is one of the things that I had experienced coming from another jurisdiction, that they would provide you that basic advice. If you had some type of easy, simple conflict of interest, you can ask a question, and sometimes that'll happen on the fly at a meeting. It's something you didn't realize and you have to ask real quick. The key is that you have to realize with any conflict of interest advice, even from a private attorney, we, the elected member, or whoever the elected member is seeking that advice, is ultimately responsible. You can't ever use a defense and say, well, my private attorney, my county counsel, my city attorney gave me bad advice, so I'm off the hook. That's not the way this works. So you have to make your own judgments. The reason I'm interested in having this ability is, as a new board member, there's issues that come up that I would like to be able to get advice on, instead of getting what will happen now is, if you have that question, what you'll get is you'll get a bunch of law, and you'll read through 10, 15 pages of law, different sections, and then you're expected to make your own interpretation. So I'm hopeful that we can have a attorney at least interpret that, and then we can make our best decision after having a little bit of advice. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, I'm going to support Supervisor GILLIO as far as, that it's important to have, some sort of policy going forward. Even though I was kind of a victim of a sworn complaint that was pretty bogus, and I wasn't that worried about it. I just took 5 minutes and answered FPPC's letter, and they decided to throw it out, of course. But for future needs of elected leaders and department heads and staff, I think we should have something in place that allows some advice, that could be helpful for a person. It could be, something a little bit more serious next time. I don't know, that it might be a little bit more gray. And I really feel that in doing our jobs and our function as, county public servants, we should have some protections too. as long as it's not gross negligence, and we've seen that before as well. And then it should be on, on you that if you done something knowingly wrong, then that's your own ethics issues. But as far as establishing, the seriousness and what advice you need, I'm going to support, some sort of policy in place that the council is recommending. Thank you.
Before we set a policy or a procedure, one thing that I want to make sure is, everything is hearsay, or they said that I can't hold our legal counsel responsible. I think it would be wise for every supervisor to actually sign something stating that this way, if anything comes back, it's in black and white, stating that the supervisor did agree that if he or she does ask for advice, that the county is not responsible for anything that arises from that advice. But,
Mr. Chair, got a question.
Yes.
I remember when I first got elected, way back then, there was an issue that we actually faced, that we're facing today now. And I was actually the no vote, and my other fellow supervisors said yes, and it cost us about $1 million. I'm not going to get into details. Supervisor Patel knows what I'm talking about. If the board's going to go in that direction, is it proper that you provide a report of which supervisor has come to you asking for interpretations of conflict of interest?
Yes. I mean,
Okay.
Along with the signature of them
Yeah.
holding us not liable.
Yeah, okay.
Peter?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. My only, the reality is yeah, we're individually accountable for our own actions, but in reference to best practices is really what I'm hearing, what I think would affect a better outcome, where we're considering, if we own property in a certain location or whatever, if there ever becomes a checklist to red flag it, or at least for council to say, I wouldn't mind if council said, hey, by the way, Peter, your business, could cause this kind of a conflict with this vote or something. And then at that point, it's more of an informed, or it's like a little bit of an educational piece, and it puts me in the driver's seat at that point to decide whether I should, I should recuse myself from said vote. So in my mind I'll make the decision, but I'd like to know, because sometimes I might not be aware if I made a vote that's considering something that might be a conflict. It's an assumption, right? So if there was a way to, with the lens that the attorney, that the council sees things through, then it might help us mitigate or prevent issues down the road.
Do you have clear direction?
I think, yes.
CEO?
Yeah, I was just going to say. Public comment. Yeah.
Any public comment? Yes, sir, Mr. Bencourt. Good to see you.
He was late today,
Richard Court, 4140 Southside Road. As a public member on LAFCO, I've brought this up as some of you sat on LAFCO with me and still am. We hire county counsel for our counsel. And boy, sometimes it seems that it could be a conflict. And I've talked to Barbara and Michael quite a bit about those issues. And boy, in my mind, it's real fuzzy. So that's just my comments. Because it's not just the county involved in LAFCO, it's the two cities. And to me, as a public member, it should be my responsibility to make sure that
the county isn't doing something against the two cities, or vice versa. So, boy, as the council know, I get real concerned about that at times. And that's my only comment.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We can get back to the board. Direction.
And we got direction, so,
Thank you. That concludes our meeting for open session. We'll be going to closed section. Barbara, do you want to
Yes.
report?
Number 14, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to D2 and E2 of Government Code Section 54956.9, number of cases 1, potential of additional litigation relating to the master tax agreement currently being litigated in Ward Homes and BMC Promise Way. And 15, closed session, conference with legal counsel, existing litigation, subdivisions A and D1 of 54956.9, name of case, Preserve Our Rural Communities versus County of San Benito, Superior Court of California, County of San Benito, case number CU 19-00174. Any public comment?
Public comment?
Still have hope to get out of here at 10:30.